this meeting of your Newark City Council to order. Autumn, please call the roll.
Mrs. Floyd? Here. Mr. Frazier? Ms. Hall? Mr. Johnson? Mr. Murmy?
Here.
Mr. Rath?
Here.
Mr. Roletta?
Here.
Mr. Blake?
Here.
Mr. Bubb?
Here.
And Mr. Koss?
Here. Okay, we have 7 present this evening. If you'll please rise for the invocation by Mrs. Floyd, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would you bow your heads, please? Heavenly Father, we thank you for the beautiful weather that you've brought us, and we ask that you be with those people who are out and about and help protect them. Sometimes there are more accidents in this beautiful weather. We'd like to keep having this kind of weather. We thank you for the many rights and freedoms that we have in this country, and we ask you to be with those people who help protect those rights for us. We ask that you be with us during our deliberations tonight as we make decisions for the city of Newark and for its citizens. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mrs. Floyd. Next on the agenda, we have caucus. That's the time for council to discuss anything pertaining to the agenda tonight. Do we have anything? Mr. Norman?
I'd like to excuse Ms. Hall, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Frazier.
Second by Mrs. Floyd. Motion to excuse the 3 folks that are missing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. Thank you. Next, we have our minutes of the February 6, 2017 meeting. Is there a motion to approve those? Motion by Mr. Rath. Second by Mr. Cost. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. Thank you. Next, we have reports of standing committees. We have one from Finance, one from Street, one from Service, one from Safety, and one from Capital Improvements. Without objection, those will be received and filed. Under Communications this evening, we have one from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control, transfer application for Pizza Cottage at 969 Mount Vernon Road. Without objection, that will also be received and filed. Next on the agenda this evening, we have comments from citizens. That's your time to be heard. This is not a debate with council, but this is just your opportunity to let us know what's on your mind. If you have anyone who'd like to speak, please raise your hand. Sir, if you'd like to come on up, just give us your name and address and have at it.
Hi, my name is James Bonham. My address is 325 North 30th Street, Newark, Ohio. I am the first house south of Church Street on the west side. And the reason I come tonight, I'm sorry, I'm kind of nervous. I've never done this before. But the reason I come tonight is a couple concerns of mine. One is the traffic signal on 30th Street. The traffic, when you are traveling east on Church Street and going south on 30th Street at the light, people are not stopping at that light. They continue to turn regardless if that light's red, green, blue, purple. They do not stop. The other concern is there's a couple of trees in my vision that I can't see out of my driveway to get out of the driveway. That's the first concern. I know I'm going to forget stuff. But my other concern is the semi-traffic on 30th Street. I know I've been calling everybody in the city so far that I can to find out what we can do about all the semi-traffic on 30th Street. There's no reason whatsoever a semi-truck needs to be on 30th Street between West Church and West Main Street. There is no businesses to be delivered to. I followed a couple of the semis, and they're going out to GFS, Sears, the mall. They're not using the state routes like it says out on 16 and 79 where you're supposed to use state routes. They're not doing it. So, what else? Is that it? I think that's about it. That's my main concern is the 30th Street. If you ever have time to go to 30th and Church, that's a new road, and our tax dollars pay for that. I don't want to see our road destroyed in the next 5 years, and that's what's happening with these semis. As you look at 30th and Church, right at the corner, that'd be the west side, you can see where the semis are taking that corner. And right now, the drain pipe or whatever it's called, where the water goes into, has actually sank because the semis are cutting the corner, and they've already tore up that road or the property there. It is a total mess, and it's not even a year old yet. And if we let it continue, we're going to be paying a lot more tax dollars out to replace that road again. And I don't want to see that, and that was my main concern. And thank you for your time, and I'm sorry I was nervous.
Jim did a good job. I will talk to Mr. Rhodes, the service director, and have him we'll have a little chat and see if we can come up with something. And you say when you're pulling out of your driveway, it's the first 2 trees?
Yeah, there are 2 trees that I just can't see, because people are coming down 30th Street at 35, 40 mile an hour, and they continue to make that turn. When I'm backing out of the driveway, they're on my butt before I can even get in drive. Sure. And
Maybe
and the other, and I forgot to tell you also, is when you're coming south on 30th Street, from the north part of 30th Street, that light, the people don't stop there to turn, when they turn right to get on 30th Street. The people who are going south on 30th Street, going through the light, they got the green light. They go through the green light, these people going down to certain church don't stop.
I know it is a right turn on red there on 30th,
Right.
off of Church, but if we maybe put up a sign that says right turn on red to give people the idea they can't just go through there,
That's
or something like
It's going to
that.
happen.
I'll tell you what, Jim, if you'd like to walk back in the back there,
Uh-huh.
Mr. Rhodes is back there right now. Put your hand up there. Thank you. Anyone else for this first section? Okay. We'll go to ordinances on the second reading, 17-03.
Ordinance 17-03 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Marmee, Mr. Koss, Mr. Johnson, Mrs. Floyd, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Director of Public Safety for the City of Newark, Ohio to release the liens previously placed on the properties located at and known as 244, 247, and 249 Lawrence Street, Newark, Ohio, and all other property maintenance liens placed on properties owned by Darrell Ellis prior to December 22nd, 2014.
You've heard the second reading of 17-03. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt 17-03.
Motion by Mr. Rath,
Second.
second by Mr. Marmee. Do we have any discussion on 17-03? Seeing none, I'll please call the roll to vote.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Frazier? Ms. Hall? Mr. Johnson? Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
And Mr. Koss.
Yes. 1703 passes 7-0. Next, we got ordinances on the first reading, 17-05.
Ordinance 17-05 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Marmee, Mr. Koss, Mrs. Floyd, an ordinance extending the authority of the Temporary Board of Zoning District Revision.
17-05 will be held for 2 weeks for a second reading. Next on the first reading, 17-06.
Ordinance 17-06 by Mr. Koss, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rath, an ordinance amending Chapter 618 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Newark, Ohio, regarding the requirement that all dogs be leashed and under the reasonable control of some person.
17-06 will be held for a second reading in 2 weeks. Actually, almost 2 weeks. And next we have 17-07.
Ordinance 17-07, an ordinance vacating, by Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Koss, Mr. Marmee, Mr. Rath, an ordinance vacating a future street right-of-way as shown on the plat of the Village of Deer Run Phase 1 subdivision as recorded in Plat Book 14, page 218, 219 of the Licking County Plat Record. Said right-of-way is located between 1407 and 1427 Misty Glen Drive.
17-07 will be held for 2 weeks for a second reading. Next, we'll move on to resolutions on the second reading, 17-04.
Resolution 17-04 by Mr. Rath, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Koss, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Frazier, and Mr. Marmee. A resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to enter into contracts subject to the appropriation of funds for the refurbishment and rehabilitation of one fire apparatus and waiving competitive bidding.
You've heard the second reading of 17-04. What is your wish?
Mr. President.
Mr. Marmee.
Make a motion to adopt Resolution 17-04.
Motion by Mr. Marmee, second by Mr. Kost. Is there any discussion on 17-04? Seeing none, I'll please call the roll to vote.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Frazier? Ms. Hall? Mr. Johnson? Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub? Mr. Kost?
Yes.
17-04 passes 7-0. Next, we have 17-06 on the second reading.
Resolution 17-06 by Mr. Koss, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Rath, A resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of municipal corporation.
First, second reading of 17-06. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmy.
motion to adopt Resolution 1706.
Motion by Mr. Marmy, second by Mrs. Floyd. Is there any discussion on 17-06? Seeing none, I'll please call the roll vote.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Frazier? Ms. Hall? Mr. Johnson? Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub? And Mr. Cost?
17-06 passes 7-0. Next resolution is on the first reading, 17-07.
Resolution 17-07 by Mr. Marmy, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation.
17-07 will be held for 2 weeks for a second reading.
It's expedited.
Next
Oh,
reading.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
Mr.
right.
President,
Mr. Marmy.
I make a motion to waive the 2-day reading rule on Resolution 17-07.
Motion to waive the 2-day reading rule by Mr. Marmy, second by Mrs. Floyd. Mr. Marmy.
Yes, these are bills that need to be paid immediately, so we need to expedite these.
Thank you, Mr. Marmy. I'll please call the roll to waive the 2-day reading rule.
Mrs. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier, Ms. Hall, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Marmy,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Roletta,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
and Mr. Cost.
2-day reading rule has been waived. Mr. Marmy.
Mr. President, make a motion to adopt Resolution 17-07.
Motion by Mr. Marmy, second by Mrs. Floyd. Is there any other discussion on 17-07? Autumn, please call the roll to vote.
Mrs. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier, Ms. Hall, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Marmy,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Roletta,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
and Mr. Cost.
17-07 passes 7-0. Next, we have 17-08.
Resolution 17-08 by Mr. Marmy, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, and Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation.
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmy.
make a motion to waive the 2-day reading rule on Resolution 17-08.
Motion to waive the 2-day reading rule by Mr. Marmy, second by Mrs. Floyd. Mr. Marmy.
Yes, we have some payouts that we have to make, and we do that relatively quickly, so we don't have to pay any kind of interest on those.
Thank you, Mr. Marmy. I'll please call the roll to waive the 2-day reading rule.
Mrs. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier, Ms. Hall, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Marmy,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Roletta,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
and Mr. Cost.
2-day reading rule has been waived. Mr. Marmy.
Thank you, Mr. President, make a motion to adopt Resolution 17-08.
Motion by Mr. Marmy, second by Mrs. Floyd. Do we have any other discussion on 17-08? Seeing none, I'll please call the roll to vote.
Mrs. Floyd,
Yes.
Mr. Frazier, Ms. Hall, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Marmy,
Yes.
Mr. Rath,
Yes.
Mr. Roletta,
Yes.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Mr. Bub,
Yes.
and Mr. Cost.
17-08 passes 7-0. Next on the first reading, we have 17-09.
Resolution 17-09 by Mr. Marmy, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Cost, Mr. Rath, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to submit an application to the Ohio Department of Public Safety for an award of fiscal year 2017-18 funding under the Ohio EMS Training and Equipment Grant Program.
17-09 will be held for 2 weeks. And finally, we have 17-10.
Resolution 17-10 by Mr. Cost, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rath, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service for the City of Newark, Ohio, to enter into a lease agreement with Park National Bank for the lease purchase of 2 dump trucks for the Streets and Traffic Control Division.
And 17-10 will be held for 2 weeks for a second reading. And that concludes our legislation this evening. Thank you so much for your attention. Next, we have our second opportunity for comments from citizens. Do we have anyone? Anyone from administration? Honorable Law Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll pass.
Thank you, Law Director. Mayor Hall.
Just kind of a quick congratulations to Newark High basketball teams. Both the boys and girls had a wonderful season. The girls 22-0, boys with just one very tough 1-point loss that placed them third in the state with the girls first in the state. And I want to wish them the best of luck as they go into the postseason, which starts tonight with the girls. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Mrs. Floyd.
2 or 3 things. I, too, would like to congratulate the basketball teams. I've been to like half of the boys' basketball games, and they're just so exciting to watch. They really put on a show Friday night. It's just really fun to watch them play, and the place is packed. It's nice to see. I mean, Newark's always been a big basketball town, but this year, obviously, greatly so. And I'd like to wish them luck as they go into the tournaments. I'd like to see us go, well, never mind, a long way, let's put it that way. A couple of other things. Most of the administration and several of us on council went a week ago Friday to a steering committee for Newark Vision 2028 to sort of look at the future of Newark for the next 10 to 20 years to see, you know, where we might go. There is a public meeting that will be March the 22nd. That is 4 weeks from tomorrow, from 6 to 8 at 31 West. And they're hoping to get a lot of, they're hoping to bring back what the steering committee came up with and then see what the public thinks of it. And then, excuse me, this is a 6-month process. Then the steering committee will meet again, looking at what the public says. And I'm just hoping that we get a lot of people from the public so they feel they have a say in some of these things. These aren't all things the government's going to do. A lot of it's going to be private things. But it's very exciting to look that far in the future. And finally, this Thursday at 6 o'clock at the GMP Hall, there is a new block watch being formed. Jim Amor has organized it. We have a police officer who's coming. There have been a number of thefts and burglaries in that area, north of Hudson and the side streets off that area. And so we're hoping to get a number of people there to see what can be done.
When did you say that was?
It's this Thursday, February 23rd at 6 o'clock at the GMP Hall.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Floyd. Yes, we don't want to jinx the basketball team, but I know Mr. Marmy's going to say how old I am, but I don't ever remember boys and girls both being in the top 3 ever. So,
Not together.
what a great deal.
It's wonderful.
All right, Mr. Marmy.
Yes, thanks, Mr. President. I too want to wish the Newark High Athletic Program fantastic success. I mean, I respect both organizations there with the basketball program. They've got a well-oiled machine, and it's not only this year. If you look at the future and what's coming up and how they have it, just all the way from a young age, they're building it, and both of those programs are just so solid, and it's very exciting, not only for this year, but for the future of Newark High basketball, both boys and girls. And I just think it's great. I need to call a finance committee meeting, and one other thing that I guess I just want to say that we can be proud of. I was watching the MLB network last night, and they do what's called a 30 and 30, where they're down and they go to 30 different spring training camps in 30 days. And yesterday they were at the Chicago White Sox training camp out in Arizona, and one of the players that they chose to interview and talk to was our very own Derek Holland, and they were just excited to have him there. I hate to say that but the MLB network pretty much said this is a rebuilding year for the White Sox, but I just think it's exciting. I'm excited for Derek, and it is a little bit closer than Texas, so maybe more folks can get to games, although a lot of them did travel up to Cleveland when he's up there. But he's the same Derek. He always has something ornery to say usually, and I'm just happy for him and that he got a good contract, and he's representing this community very well. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Marmy. Mr. Rath?
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say I went to the Licky Memorial Breakfast this morning, and that was basically a look at the year past and what's to come in the future, and talk about something to be proud of in Licking County and in Newark. One is the largest employer in Licking County, but two is obviously the largest employer in Newark. And it's such a phenomenal hospital. The statistics that they showed this morning of where they are and what they've done and how they compare to other Columbus hospitals and other hospitals around Ohio It really is an outstanding quality healthcare system, and we're incredibly fortunate to have that in our community. With that, I'll call a service committee meeting and pass.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. I'll go ahead and invite, what ward are they in?
I believe they're in the most desirable ward
Okay,
to live
that's
in.
enough. Just cover it before we get on.
Thank you all, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Roletta. Mr. Blake?
I'll pass, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Mr. Bub?
Call personnel committee meeting for this Monday, with that I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Bub. Mr. Cost? I will pass. Okay, just a couple odds and ends. Our next committee meeting will be the 27th here in this room at 5:30, which is next Monday. Our next full council meeting will be the following Monday, March the 6th at 7 p.m. Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Cost, second by Mr. Rath. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.